time to theorize about Jason, our old pal, old baghead Jason. I
He
guess
doesn't
not
have a bag anymore. He hasn't been in a bag for 2.
Yeah, what would the series look like if Jason had never gotten the hockey mask and just continued to be old sackhead Jason? What would it have been as popular? Would it have gone to the heights that it did, or would it have been a forgotten slasher of the
So
80s?
I think I would know. It would still be what we're getting, just instead of a hockey mask, we're getting a bag head. And then the bloody murder movies, which is 100% ripping off Jason, instead of being a silver hockey mask, it would have been a silver bag. Probably a plastic bag from Walmart.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I personally don't think Sackhead Jason would have captured the hearts and minds of slasher fans. I don't think it would have been a huge franchise if he kept the Sackhead, although I do appreciate it in part 2.
I don't think it really would have mattered either way. He doesn't do anything different. He wouldn't do anything different if he didn't have the bag. If he didn't have the hockey mask versus the bag.
But something about that hockey mask, man. I don't know, man. It's such an iconic image, the hockey mask. It's like you can't separate that from Jason. So, but we're here today not to talk about Sackhead Jason, but to talk about the theories of Friday 13th, Part 7. I should really just add in my own sound effect there instead of me. Well, we're on a budget. We can't afford sound effects, folks. So
I'm about to say our budget is $1.
For those curious, episodes 1 through 6 are in the archives. If you're a Friday 13th fan, we basically go through each movie in the series and give our theories, opinions about what's going on here, about on the surface. We also have our full reviews of the series also in the archives. So go check that out. We're doing it now because we have a Friday 13th coming up in September, in which I believe on Friday 13th, we're planning to do like a watch along. So it'll be a live watch along on YouTube is what we're aiming for. So look for that. And by that time, we should have completed this series of going through all of them, which we still have part 7. After today's 7, we have the 8, 9, Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, and the remake if we want to do the remake.
I don't want to do Freddy vs. Jason.
Well, that's the one we got it. That's a must. The fans demanded, Nick. You know why? Because they
want to see me cry.
Because they love Freddy vs. Jason. It's a beloved sequel, the holy grail of verse movies. You got lower tier Alien vs. Predator, upper tier looking down Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah. And mid tier Kayaku versus Sadako.
Come in.
The Grudge versus The Ring.
Oh my God. Get out of here.
And also, you know what's a better movie than Freddy vs. Jason? Jason Goes to Hell. I don't care how many people just got butthurt over that.
That is factually incorrect, sir. There's no way that freaking Evil Dead Deadeye Jason and Creighton Duke saying, "Remember me?" And
to be fair,
there's no history of Creighton Duke meeting Jason. So
to be fair, Jason in Freddy vs. Jason is still a Deadite, sir.
Oh, it's the same Jason from Jason Goes to Hell.
Exactly. So he's still a Deadite.
Jason's barely in Jason Goes to Hell. The movie should be called Jason Goes Away from the Movie for an Hour and Comes Back at the End. I refuse to put that higher than Freddy vs. Jason.
I don't.
Well, you just are not appreciative.
I am appreciative of that last half an hour. I am not appreciative of the first hour.
Right, well, I don't love the first hour either, but the last half an hour is so good that it elevates it beyond elevated.
At least Jason Goes to Hell is consistently shit. I've always said, if you're going to be one thing, be consistent.
You know, Jason Goes to Hell it doesn't have like, in my opinion. It doesn't have like the highs, but yeah, it's never really that bad though. It does have probably the better characters in the series, I would say.
It's more of a fun movie. I don't think it was meant to be taken very seriously.
It's a body snatching alien movie. It's just not a Jason movie. Would take the Jason title of it on its own. It's a good movie. It just has nothing to do with Jason. It feels like.
At least until the end when he throws the guy around, which apparently was originally supposed to be Tommy Jarvis.
You gotta love Jason. Back from the dead, his first thing to do is not to kill someone, but to just beat the shit out of him. Just throw him around, beat him up.
About to say, he didn't even beat the shit out of him. He just chucked him. Because let's face it, if he punched him, his head would have flown off.
We've never seen Jason do that. Jason's not like a play with his food killer. He kills you. So, all right, but we're here to talk about part 7, which is famous for almost being Carrie versus Jason.
But
That was the
Stephen King
plan.
said no.
The original thing actually was this was the first attempt to do Freddy vs. Jason was going to be part of Part 7. They talked to New Line. There was just like nobody wanted to concede on the rights, like which studio was going to distribute it, how it's going to work. But that was the early
Also,
talks of Freddy vs. Jason. So
something tells me, obviously, New Line's like, no, Freddy's going to win. And Paramount's like, no, Jason's going to win. And
because at that time they're both in the peak of their franchises, so
mm,
you can't really make one of them look bad.
well,
But
if you
yeah,
do it right, neither of them looks bad, no matter if that one loses or not. Especially if you make Freddy the main. If they did Freddy versus Jason as Part 7,
yeah,
as long as Freddy was still pretty much evil incarnate, you could have him lose as long as he's still at his prime, gets a couple of deaths in, gets his one-liners in. As long as he's in his prime evil, I don't think he would have been looked bad even if he lost.
yeah. I think they would have done like kind of an ending where they both come out on top or they both lose, but they wouldn't have done a clear-cut winning ending either way. I feel like. But either way, it got rejected, and then you're right. Carrie versus Jason. Stephen King said no, but it's like, wait a minute. We don't have to have the character named Carrie. We can just do our own version of Carrie, and that's how we get Tina Shepard, who's
Well,
going to be
you
Carrie.
also have to make sure she doesn't have the exact same abilities as Carrie and nor the backstory as Carrie. So the mother could not be an evil bitch, for lack of better words.
True.
And
Well,
also, this couldn't have been Carrie anyway, because Carrie didn't even know about her powers until right before she dies.
yeah, what would Carrie be doing at Camp Crystal Lake? There's a lot of pieces you have to put together to make that work. But let's talk about the Friday series. It's funny to go on like online and even on Facebook and Reddit and stuff like that. People really try to piece together the timeline and put together the continuity. In hindsight, I don't think the studio was really cared about the continuity or the timeline because each movie you get like a new writer, new director, and they sort of bridge it together with the previous sequel, but not a lot of thought is put into it. So Part 7 picks up where Part 6 left off, which, as we see in the background, Jason's at the bottom of the lake because
Yes.
Tommy Jarvis took him to his original resting spot, which I guess is the bottom of the lake, even though he didn't actually drown.
Mm-hmm.
So the first theory we can theorize about is at the end of Part 6, Jason bottom of the lake, Tommy, Megan alive.
Mm-hmm.
Why did nobody get Jason's body out of the water? What happened when the cops came? Because Tommy has to give them a story, or does he tell them the truth? Like, do they arrest him?
So I think I got a slight answer with that. The reason, so I don't think Tommy told him for one reason. If he 100% believed that in order to take out Jason was to put him back in his original resting place, which in his mind is under the water, he's not going to want them to bring Jason up because then he's going to be out of his original resting place again.
True. Very interesting. Okay, so Tommy basically then has to tell them pretty much that Jason did the killings, but then Jason got away. Maybe went to the woods pretty much. But he can't point them to the water because he feels like if they dig Jason up, it'll do more harm, basically taking him out of his resting spot. Also, he knows how strong Jason is, so what are the cops going to do?
Cops going to get ripped in half. Like one guy who got folded like a taco.
Yeah. Yeah, Jason can probably take out the entire police force and the Camp Crystal
Pretty much
area.
did.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so but Tommy feels good about Jason being done to a point that he's going to leave. Just leave him in the water, and he goes and lives his life pretty much. So
at least
he's
until
not
never a hike alone.
Right. But he's not in Part 7 because we can assume that he thinks the job is done. He's gone pretty much.
Yes.
Okay. Now, timeline.
Like 8 years later, because now instead of a camp, there's a house.
Well,
unless Jason like drifted downstream, which could happen. I don't know. That was a big ass rock. But water is strong.
Yeah, but you think the rock drifted? I mean, the rock is huge. Maybe.
That's the only thing that can make sense. It's either the rock drifted and the currents took Jason downstream, or they broke down the entire camp, put up a house that's on that now that I remember, it's on a hill. It's not even
Yep.
at the same spot that the camp was.
Uh-huh.
So he had to have drifted. Otherwise, nothing else makes sense.
Unless they very quickly tore down the entire camp
Built a
and
hill.
rebuilt this thing, which now we're going to get to the timeline of when part 7 takes place, because
2009.
I mean, it sounds silly, but you might be right, because so we cut to basically, you're right, a whole new area, pretty much, new house, everything. And Tina's a little kid, basically. Well, we'll say maybe 10, 11, 12 years old. But they first show Jason at the bottom of the water, tied to the rock. So we know this is after part 6. So then all this happens with her father. She basically kills her father through her psychic powers. And then we do a time jump of another 6 years-ish?
I think it was 6 years, because she's 17, I believe, when they go back.
Okay, so they could have fixed this quickly by just the beginning of part 7 not showing Jason in the water. Then you could have been like, that flashback could have been back in the day in Camp Crystal Lake and have nothing to do with it. Didn't have to take place after part 6. But by showing Jason in the water, we are doing a big time jump here into the 90s, at least.
Yeah. There's a cat on me. I definitely agree with. Hi.
He was like, "Y'all talking about Jason?"
You're right.
I want to get in this conversation.
I see that. No, I definitely agree with you. They should have just had the movie start 100% her killing the dad and not show Jason until they get back there 6 years later. Because then, for all we know, the movie takes place 1 year after, which I'm assuming is what the writers wanted us to think.
Well, it's like kind of like, okay, they rebuilt Camp Crystal Lake into houses, whatever, and then we have another time jump. So we're basically like in 1997, probably at this point in the timeline, which we see these characters. It doesn't seem like the 90s. It feels like very much still the 80s.
Well, yeah, but here's another question. So part 4, right, is supposed to take place still in 1980, right? Or 1984.
I think 1984, yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to take place in 1984 because it's like supposed to be 5 years after part 1. 2, 3, and 4 are supposed to be 5 years after part 1.
Yeah.
So, and then part 6 takes place, what, 6, 7 years after?
Well, okay.
Because Tommy's now like close to 20 years old.
Well, we don't know in part 6 is we don't know if Tommy's 18 or if he's 21. That's the one thing. So part 6, I think, probably takes place pretty closely after part 5, if we're counting part 5.
I wouldn't count part 5.
Okay, well, Tommy in part 6, in my opinion, either be 18 or 21. Because he's no longer in the place, but did they let him leave at 18 or 21? So
I say, let's just say 18 then, because let's face it, he's also trying to get with Megan.
And in part 4, we're saying he was, what, 12 years old?
12, so then we're jumping another 6 years to 1991.
And that's before any of this stuff. So, damn, we might be hitting the 2000s. Oh!
So now we got this movie where, if we're to assume, now let's just say Jason drifted downstream, so we can assume that Jason is actually somewhere else, probably in the same year as 1991. Let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. Benefit of the doubt, 1991. She killed her dad, and then we're saying 6 years later, so it is 1997. You're right.
Okay. And these kids dressed like the 80s. And there's no 90s technology here. Nobody's busting open a computer to log on America Online. I'm not seeing anybody wearing a Friends shirt or anything that would suggest the 90s, but that's okay.
Here you go. Here you go. Friends.
Okay. All right. Next theory here. 1997. Fine. Why are kids still coming to this lake? Shouldn't the reputation now be that people that go there die? Like, they actually, I'm right, they call it Camp Crystal Lake again.
Yes.
They changed the name back.
Yes. You know why?
Everybody should know the history. Why are these kids coming here?
Because Jason has not been seen in 6 flipping years. Guarantee you, in the first year, maybe first 2 years, no one was going there. After about 2, 3 years, people started going back. I mean, the town needs to make money somehow.
Wouldn't when they're preparing to reopen it, wouldn't there be something where like some maintenance was happening where somebody would look into the water?
Nah.
They have to like, yeah, I mean, that has to be some kind of maintenance on the water where like Jason's, because how deep is the water there too? It's like, I don't know, but okay.
Camp Crystal Lake, it's definitely not going to beat the Mariana Trench, but I'm assuming possibly 20 feet down, maybe more.
So we're saying that basically in all this time period, nobody found Jason's body or someone on Jason's body. The kids now basically, but it's not just that like they're not worried about it. They don't even talk about it. They come to Camp Crystal Lake in this movie as if they have no idea about the history. Like not one character is not being like, yo, this is the place. In part 6, they actually talk like, hey, the mythology of Jason's in part 6. This movie, these characters should be at least self-aware to be like, hey, there's like a lot of killings that happen here, right? But they're completely business.
If I may, we're dealing with a bunch of kids who probably grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth, so they most likely did not care about the news. The only thing they cared about is themselves and how to one up all their friends.
Well, I guess also there's no Google back then. They don't have cell phones either to like smartphones to like look up anything. Although this is 1997, so they should have internet. But okay, maybe they wouldn't be as conscious as they are now. But I guarantee you that whole town, unless they're coming from out of town, that whole town would be very, very conscious of the legend of Jason.
Oh, they're definitely out of town.
I guess they got to be. And maybe that's the only way to explain it, because nobody in the range, I feel like, is coming there without knowing that history. Too many bodies have turned up at Crystal Lake by this point. So that's kind of, I don't know. Part 7 and part 8, all the characters from that point should still be pretty wary of doing anything Crystal Lake related, in my opinion, but they're not. But it's fine.
Bah.
Okay. I really only got one more.
Okay.
The ending.
Okay, so the dad coming out not decomposed at all, even though he's been in there for 6 years. The bones should have melted off of his bones.
Okay, this gets into
ridiculous territory.
How Jason's body should have been discovered, because if her dad died in the water, okay, what's the reasoning for not digging up his body? Like the ambulance would come and her and the mom would be like, yeah, he drowned right there. They would retrieve the body.
I feel like this is probably a horror movie trope in the sense of they were trying to protect the daughter in some way of keeping the cops from finding out what happened to them, because I guarantee you, they're living by the lake. The dad most likely knows how to swim. Sure, you could say, hey, he was drunk, he bonked his head and went down.
Are you hinting that maybe the dad didn't die?
No, I'm hinting that the mother and daughter did not actually call the police after it happened.
They came with the story first, but
the only other one we knows about what happened is the doctor. And the doctor, technically, unless he feels like one of them is going to kill again, he has an obligation not to say anything.
But think about this, though. In terms of what happened, though, it's actually a very easy explanation to give the cops, though, because he was standing on the dock and the dock collapsed.
Yes.
So even though we know she caused it, you tell the cops basically, hey, the dock collapsed. There's actually very easy to not put any blame on her, because they're gonna be like, oh, well, this is a malfunction of the dock collapsed. But there's no clear sign of murder or anything, so I think they'd be okay.
Yeah, but the only way I can say they did not look for the father's body is they came up with some kind of story that maybe he left or something.
Now, to your point, if the body's still down there, why did we get a perfectly normal-looking, non-decomposed human body jumping out of the water at the end? Why wasn't he a freaking looking like Jason, basically?
Well, I mean, to be fair, there's one other thing I have an issue with the climax about.
Yeah.
Why was Jason being tossed around like a rag doll instead of there actually be a chance that Jason could have killed our main character?
We were just making fun of Jason Goes to Hell, but he does do a little bit of this here at the end. He starts tossing people around instead of killing them.
He doesn't even toss anyone around. He just gets mollywopped by a damn lamp.
Well, this is a horror trope, but also a Jason trope. Jason, in the first part of every movie, is an unstoppable killing machine. When he gets to the final people, turns to a complete bumbling idiot in every movie. Even zombie Jason has his fair share of idioticness, which is right here. So, okay. So then, if Tina saw her father just take Jason's body down to the water, now why does Tina not this time around have her father's body dug up from the water? Like, I don't. It's the same aftermath problem again of like, why is his body still at the bottom of the water for Tina now? Going into part 8, his body's still going to be there in the water.
I may have another reason for that. Okay. Tina does not want them to find Jason.
Same reason with Tommy, just doesn't think they can handle him.
Probably, most likely, because what we're supposed to also, I guess, understand is the father at that point is pretty much holding Jason down there, allegedly, even though he's not there in the next movie.
Right. I mean, I guess so, but yeah. Where's his body in part 8 then? The father's body, and also body in part 8.
It finally decomposed.
We'll get to that, but we're gonna probably see the setting of Crystal Lake change again between 7 and 8, which, again, whatever. But all right. All that said, part 7 has a fantastic last 20 minutes. The fight with Tina and Jason's fantastic. But yeah, decent movie. Yeah, kind of a mid-level entry, I'd say. So.
And as always, folks, you don't have to go home. You do got to get me some saucy nuggets from Wendy's. I like buffalo, but you can try the ghost pepper if you want. I used to eat it all the time. It's good, but
spicy though.
Oh, it's very spicy.